Hey everyone. Please support what I do to help keep Greyhawk alive by subscribing to the channel. Also, please consider becoming a channel member to get early access to videos, exclusive live chats, quarterly adventure modules, and more. Thanks, and enjoy the show. So the Adventures Dark and Deep Kickstarter has just launched, and I thought it would be a fun idea to go through some of the changes in a little more depth today on Greyhawk Roadguard. Hey, so I'm recording this about a week before the launch of the Kickstarter. I hope it's doing okay, but I have absolutely no idea. I thought it would be a good idea to go through some of the changes between the first printing of Adventures Dark and Deep and this new one that's coming along right now. Obviously, the biggest physical change is the move from 3 books to two. The Game Master's Toolkit and Player's Manual are being consolidated into one book. There's still going to be a separate bestiary. Both books right now are clocking in at over 500 pages, and that's before I've even gotten to art and layout. So there are going to be some hefty tomes. This is not a rules light game, um, so I'm bucking convention there. Um, but there are a bunch of changes. Another big one from a behind the scenes standpoint is the removal of the open gaming license. Everything is being published under the auspices of the material that's been moved into Creative Commons by Wizards of the Coast. And, that frees up a few things. There are, it doesn't have the restrictions that the OGL had. So, there's a few little changes along those lines where things can have names that they couldn't before. Um, in terms of the rule book, the what is now called the core rule book, the overall content is still the same. It's still, it's still the same game, and it still has that same core concept of what if Gary Gygax had stayed at TSR, what would second edition have looked like. But this has a bunch of um, additions, new material, and some things have been changed around. Not it's grown beyond that initial concept. That initial concept's still there, but it is taken on a life of its own. There are new classes and new races. There is a centaur race as a player character race. There are now the halflings are broken out into harefoots and stouts and tall fellows with different details among them. There is also now a standard human subrace called barbarians. And this is done because of the idea. Gary had this concept of barbarian cultures having their own set of classes and so forth. We saw this with the barbarian. He had published a hunter class, which was along those same lines. This game does not have a hunter class. I thought that would be too close to his material, and I didn't want to step on that exactly. But the new game does have a Scald class, which is basically a barbarian bard. So it has the verbal patter abilities of a bard, and it also has some of the um, uh, barbarian traits. It must be of a barbarian human subclass, though. And that's a way I have of standardizing some of those barbarian traits. So they don't have to be repeated every time there's a barbarian subclass. You don't have to keep saying the same things about the anti-magic bias, and they get these secondary skills, and they get these weapons, and so forth. It's all subsumed into that subclass and sub race, which makes things a lot easier from a organizational standpoint. So that's I think that was an important move that really makes it easier to use and to read. Um, in terms of the classes, as I mentioned, there is a Scald class, which is a subclass of the Bard. The Scald um, has a lot of the same abilities as the Barbarian. Except they also have the non-magical abilities of a bard. So instead of spells, they have their verbal patter and they have their musical instruments and so forth. But they also have the sort of, the leaping and jumping and the woodcraft and stuff that a barbarian does. So it's a nice non-magical bard that works really well. There's also a blackguard, which is a subclass of cavalier. It's sort of like an anti-paladin where they can cause disease, they command undead, they can have a familiar, but they still have those. the weapons and the armor requirements and so forth that you would have from a regular cavalier. So it's kind of a it takes the other side of the paladin. Um, in The rest of the classes are pretty well um, left alone. There's a little everything's been completely re-edited, so it's hopefully a lot easier to read and understand and so forth. But in terms of the classes, the rest of the classes themselves, they're going to be very familiar to you if you have those first books. There are some new secondary skills. Um, the rest of the cost of equipment and services has been updated a little bit. There's a few new spells, and there are quite a number of new magic items, mostly around the new Centaur class. So there are special horseshoes that centaurs can wear, and they have their equivalents of like elven boots and the dwarven thrower and stuff like that. So there's a lot of changes to to kind of bring in the new material, so it's a lot more seamless. Um, Other than that, there's not a lot of new stuff, but as I say, everything has been completely rewritten and re-edited to make it a lot easier to use. The core systems are the same. Initiative works the same way, spellcasting works the same way. All that's not going to change. But it is definitely a friendlier book to use, even though it's bigger. And one of the reasons it's bigger is because the typeface is bigger, because I was getting to the point where I couldn't read my own book. So this is this has a typeface that's a little larger, so older folks like me can actually read it. Plus, there's going to be new art. Obviously, that's what the Kickstarter's for, art and editing. Overall, I'm really pleased with it. I'm very excited about it. I think the new stuff is worth it. And I hope you'll support the Kickstarter. A link will definitely be below. Have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you all later.
Thanks for watching today's video. Please remember to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Below you'll find links to my Patreon, which helps make these videos possible. You'll also find the web store where you can buy my books, and my blog where you'll find all sorts of free downloads and other articles. Thanks, and have a great day.